Sorry.
Hi.
This is a time for individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission regarding issues not already on the agenda. Oh yeah, we didn't adopt the agenda yet. Sorry, one minute. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Okay, or second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now visitor communication.
Turn something on here. Okay. Mark Dickens, 133 East Black Crater Avenue here in Sisters. Thank you, everyone, for letting me speak. Just want to touch on a few things real quickly. Heard me in here recently. This is a little article that I read here recently that I think the Planning Commission will find interesting. I mentioned it to City Council the other night. I'll leave it here, but it sadly rates Oregon way down in housing and land use ability and stuff like that. So maybe the Planning Commission would, kind of like to look at that. So if you remember several years ago when the Space Age gas station development was being proposed, and prior to that there was a workshop that was put on by the Planning Commission and Jeremy Green, the legal counsel for the City of Sisters. He was on Zoom, and one of the things that I remember taking notes at that meeting was the advice or the instruction that he was giving to the planning commissioners, the new commissioners. I think Sarah McDougall was recently appointed. Was that at the end of the day, the decisions and the policies and how you vote is supposed to reflect the overall sentiment and majority of the citizens of Sisters. And obviously that was proven right when you saw what happened with the gas station application, when all the evidence came out with that fraudulent traffic study, and so the board voted 7-0 to deny it, and the applicant didn't even appeal it. So following that theme or that philosophy, I think it's very important for the Planning Commission to always be mindful of that and take that to heart. I don't think it matters who you were appointed by to get on this board. I think it really matters, and you should answer to the citizens. So let me give you an example here in real numbers. This isn't a theoretical thing. I've been highly critical of the transportation hub out here, the first phase. I was involved in all that. I think it's an utterly wasteful, outdated, ill-conceived project that needs to be completely reviewed and shut down, and they've already spent over $1 million. I don't know where the money's coming from, but it just has not produced anything that I think the city should be proud of. And to give you an example of some of the waste, the temporary construction fencing was $24,000 and $26,000, $50,000 for the fencing. Now, I know your city manager will defend that because, of course, he signed this contract, but let me give you a breakdown. Here's another category of the absolute waste. Aggregate base, 3,500 tons, $122,000. I called some local quarries and got estimates to get 3,500 tons of rock delivered to the site, and retail $68,000. So that bid is almost, that number is almost double. Now that's just one item of dozens in this contract, and it goes on and on. So I don't know who's reviewing this, who's authorizing this, who's checking this, but maybe the Planning Commission can have a role in future projects and get involved in this process. I've talked to your advisory board, but I think the Planning Commission should have some authority to oversee these things, even if they're approved, to make sure that they're being implemented and the money's being spent wisely. There's a few more phases, I understand, proposed to this. Now, that does not even include this $900,000 contract, doesn't even include the architectural and engineering, which was about another $200,000. But the transportation hub is already outdated. There's already charging stations. If you look at it, it's just a missed opportunity. They spent no money in updating the bathroom building, the entranceways, a disaster. It's way across the driveway from the handicap parking. There's just so many things that were flawed in that. So again, I hope these, find the place in this constructive criticism here, because I really think that the city should do better and be prepared to be more proactive in these developments and these projects and watch how the money's being spent and where it's going. I also think the city charter, this is, I know, way outside your realm, but really needs to be changed where the citizens can elect their mayor, and then we know the platform that the mayor runs on, because that's who appoints everybody on this board. And I think it's kind of this Russian roulette where we never know who the mayor's going to be. It's done behind closed doors, and then they have the ability to appoint all the planning commissioners, and that may not really reflect the broad opinion of the community. It may only be based on what the mayor wants, to carry out his agenda. So again, I really applaud you assuming this role and this responsibility. I know it's a lot. We're all fellow citizens here, but it just would really be nice to see the city maybe reform some of these things and be a little smarter and wiser how they spend the money, and have some projects that we all can be very, very proud of and hang our hat on. So anyways, thank you very much again for allowing me to speak.
Anyone else? Okay, the next item is the approval of minutes from August 21st and October 15th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to the workshop.
Thank you, Chair Blumenkron. Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. So this is the next installment in our continuing education workshops that we're engaging with the Planning Commission in our efforts to make sure you guys have an understanding of what's going on in the community, or within the purview of your responsibilities, and give you the tools that you need to exercise that, and to see what questions you have. So you might have seen I put out a little poll to see what you guys wanted to learn more about, and of those that responded, the ones that did indicated that they'd like to learn a little bit more about area planning and the housing plan. We can continue to do more with future workshops on other topics. Some other good information came up through that. I think one member wanted to know more about pedestrian improvements and bicycle improvements, and how to get around town, plans for future projects, things we can do to improve safety and getting around town. There was also a request to have more knowledge about some of the projects that are going on around town that maybe are things that you don't see, that are about ready to break ground or have broken ground. I think sometimes, I've heard this from council members as well, that they get questions out in the community, especially when your friends and neighbors know that you're on a city commission or a board. What's going on? And probably the last thing you want to say to them is, I don't know. So we're going to work on trying to do some reporting out, like maybe quarterly, to both the commission and the council, so that you guys are aware of those things. But the first thing that we're going to talk about today is area planning. As we get closer to actually doing some area planning of our own here in the community, that usually comes on the heels of an urban growth boundary amendment. We thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of let you know, if you're not familiar with those, what elements are in an area plan, and how they're formulated and how they're utilized when you actually adopt one. We typically would start an area plan process after the urban growth boundary amendment has been adopted. It's a little cart before the horse to start it before you have a formal approval, and we're still in that process. We haven't gotten city approval and county approval of the proposed expansion yet, but that is anticipated to happen sometime this summer, hopefully this summer, maybe late summer, at the latest fall. We do need to get it done before the end of the year, adopted that is, at least locally, and get it to the state, because otherwise we could be subject to new rules that have been approved in the interim as we've gone through this process, and we might have to start over in some respects. So we want to get that adopted by the end of the year. So area plans are the next step in the process. We think we can start getting going with some of this work before, as our application works its way through the process. Some of the background information, getting prepared for the public process that an area plan does involve. So area plans are fairly common around the state of Oregon. When I worked in Colorado, that term wasn't used, so I think it's more of a term that's used here in Oregon, because it's kind of somewhat, we have unique planning laws related to urban growth boundary expansions. So most communities, if you do a search, around Oregon, have adopted an area plan or two or more over time. So what is an area plan exactly? So it's kind of a community visioning tool that's used for future growth in specific areas of a community. You can have more than one area plan in a community if you need one. It's if we had ended up with 2 different areas of town of expansion, we could have an area plan for each area. Potentially, you could split the concept AA up into a couple different area plans if they had different geographical characteristics, or something that differentiates itself from the other parts. You could or if you just want to break it up into smaller chunks, you could potentially do two area plans or multiple area plans in a community. And so it's basically used to coordinate future development, define land uses, and guide public facilities such as utilities, streets, schools, and parks to ensure efficient growth. I have up on the screen here an example of one in Redmond called the Southwest Area Plan that I helped work on when I was working for the city of Redmond, to kind of show you an example of what these look like. There's a couple different examples from that area. Here's one called the US 97 Area Plan. This is this is located kind of on the north side of Redmond. This alignment right here is the Highway 97. And this was one of the areas that they expanded when they expanded their urban growth boundary in 2006. They brought in 2,300 acres, so they have it's spread out basically in various corners of the community. So they have multiple ones. But this is kind of a neighborhood land use plan that was kind of the result of that planning. The area plan itself is typically can be like a 100-page report. When it's all said and done, there's lots of verbiage that goes along with it in addition to maps and figures and exhibits. But this is what they resulted in after their planning. They went through a process that let's talk about what are the elements of the plan. The land use plan is kind of what is used as a guide for future annexation. So once they get this plan adopted, this becomes sort of the expectation for growth when developers that own property in these areas want to come forth with an annexation. The expectation of the city is that their master plan is in substantial or general conformance with what the area plan has shown there. And so each of those different colors represents a different type of land use. In this particular instance, there was these red areas were kind of intended to be like a mixed-use kind of neighborhood, kind of a downtown, not to compete with the primary downtown, but to provide some some services to residents in the area that was a walkable type of arrangement. And then with the orange kind of surrounding it were multifamily, higher density surrounding that core area, and then getting into lower densities in these yellow areas.
General question
Yeah.
about this. So this was done in 2006, and it was an urban growth expansion. Are they finished with all this at this point? That you know of?
No, it has developed. There has been development in there, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's complete yet.
So just to give us an idea of the timeline that.
Yeah, and you gotta remember there's been a few major nationwide, maybe worldwide issues or things that have affected economic development over time.
2009.
Yeah, so
What happened?
Yeah.
so it's a 20-year plan, but it could go longer, or it could go quicker. We don't know.
I
It
just
just
saw
depends.
they're talking about a big housing area out near the airport. I don't know if that was part of this original.
Out by the airport in Redmond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some.
8,000 units or something. Quite a bit of housing.
Yeah, there is an area that they expanded on the east side of town. They also have a urban area reserve, which is a concept that is, at the time, it was not the 20-year supply of land, it was the 20 to 40-year supply, and that might be the area that they might be thinking about expanding into potentially. That was my guess. It was part of their UGB expansion where they expanded the UGB, but also designated an urban area reserve in addition to that.
So
Yeah.
step one, step two.
Yeah, exactly. So each of these colors is kind of I would characterize it as like a land use designation, even a comprehensive plan designation. It's not a zoning designation, but it correlates to a city zone, so that when the property owner comes in for annexation, they have an understanding of what zone districts that they would be assigned to when they came in. And in Redmond, all this was done at the time of annexation. If somebody wanted to annex, they also had to have a master plan presented to the city at the same time, because the city really wanted to know what it was getting before it approved the annexation. So it wasn't just annexing land and just bare land and calling it good and waiting for them to come forward with a plan. It was a requirement at the time of annexation to have a master plan. And compliance with the area plan was a code requirement.
Do we require that, a pre-plan before we allow annexation?
We don't currently have provisions in our code that require that. So one of the work items before we get to the point of entertaining annexations is to take a look at our annexation policy, so that we are ready for proposals when they come through the door. We know what will be the requirement and the steps required to do so. So we have some work to do on that front. In fact, next week we are going to start discussions with the council on annexation policy in a workshop format to kind of give them an overview of what our ordinance says now and what it requires. What are some of the things you can put into an annexation ordinance? The council has been very interested in requiring certain percentages of affordable housing. That would be could be an appropriate time to put that in, to codify that, so that those requirements are clear before anybody proposes to annex. And so, there's some steps that we'll need to take as a community to get prepared for those requests.
Thank you.
We also look at transportation requirements. In this particular example, and in the one in Redmond, one of the policies of their comprehensive plan and their code was to, whenever they expanded to any new development, but especially in annexed areas, was to continue the city grid the street grid. So as you can see in this plan, it's a very gridded street layout to ensure that traffic is dispersed in multiple different streets, and you don't see any cul-de-sacs there. That was something that you can only do cul-de-sacs if you had a topographical constraint. But otherwise, you're expected to stub your streets and connect them out to the property line. You can see that they're stubbed out to the property line there. So any future development to the west would be able to utilize those streets and continue the grid. So that's an example of some of the policies that they wanted to see continue. There were in these areas, there's some employment lands that were designated. And then you can see the green area called for parks. Our UGB expansion is calling for about 26 acres of new parkland. So in our area plan process, we'll start to need to identify areas that could accommodate parks. This one got pretty specific in terms of where it was located and general size. And then there was a canal that went through the property, and there was that was seen as an opportunity for a trail corridor. We have areas that of our UGB expansion that would go along Whitejuice Creek and Indian Meadows, Indian Ford Creek, that would be similar opportunities for trails. So those are some of the things that, as we go through our area plan process, we might identify and want to put into our plan.
Quick question on the cul-de-sacs there, the topographical restriction for like allowing cul-de-sacs, is that like a city code in Redmond, or is that a common?
It's a code requirement, yeah.
Okay.
And I think we have that here too, that streets are expected to be extended to the property line unless there's some kind of constraint, like the street's never going to go through, or there's some kind of kind of situation where the street couldn't be connected through, then that would be a situation you could do a cul-de-sac.
How does the parkland get handled? The city doesn't. Would the city go out and buy the 26 acres, or would they rely on developers to provide a certain amount of open space, and that would end up being the park or parks?
It could go either way. I mean, there are situations where if it's a large development, that could be an element of the annexation requirements, is that they build it and they could either dedicate the land for the park for the community to build, or the city could require both, or the city could use, say, SDC fees to pay for the land and later develop. There's a combination of possibilities there that could occur. I don't know. That occurred after I left. There was one in Redmond on the other side, in another location in the urban growth boundary, where they might have been worked out something where they got SDC credits for dedicating the land. So there was some kind of negotiation there. Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to do it. Here's an example of the Southwest area plan. This little, I guess it's green area in the middle is Ridgeview High School, and that was a big growth area, and the city wanted to get ahead of growth occurring out there, so undertook this Southwest area plan process. And all this is based on what the land needs are. We talked in our UGB sufficiency report about how many acres of residential we need, how many acres of employment land, acres of park, and we know we need a school site. So when we go to plan all these things, we're going to have to make sure that there is a designation to make sure all those needs are accommodated. Where those go, and on the site is one of the exercises for the area plan, is to try to figure out how that all goes together. In this one, you can also see there's red lines and with little arrows. The city basically wanted to sort of give some direction in terms of where street connections were to occur. So you'll, at the time that this plan was done, you had some development here and here, but basically the rest of it was undeveloped. And so we wanted to provide some direction for making sure that streets got connected in the manner that we wanted to. There's a few areas where there's just arrows that dictates that we want a street here. How it gets connected here, we'll leave it up to the developers to kind of define that. But we wanted to give a little bit of certainty to where those corridors were going to occur and where some of those connections were going to be made. Certainly there, as development occurred over time, I would say that the development doesn't occur exactly as it is on the area plan. The area plan is kind of I say like a 30,000 foot level kind of master plan for the community, or maybe it's 20,000 feet. The urban growth boundary preferred boundary is the 30,000 foot level. And then when a developer comes in with a master plan, it takes it even down to a finer detail. And then subdivision is even finer than that. So this is the expectation, but I think the community needs to be aware that there could be some changes to this plan. The idea is that the spirit of the plan stays the same, but this area of orange right here might be a little bit bigger, or it might be over here instead. There's an opportunity for that to flex a little bit as master plans come through. If it's such a major change that we don't feel it's in the spirit of the original plan, we can require that they amend the comprehensive plan, amend the area plan, it's a formal process.
You mentioned that Colorado doesn't have this and Oregon does have it. Why does Oregon have it? Why is this useful as a layer of planning?
I think it's a good tool to guarantee that we're going to get the identified land needs that our studies have called out for. I think it just helps ensure that, helps guide development. Smart planning. It's good planning. Other communities do some similar things. They may call it something else in other states, but it seems to be it may be a requirement in the state. Is why it's so common, but it's just a useful tool.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you can see in this plan, these little green stars were approximate park locations. So this map this particular area plan didn't get so detailed as to say it's going to be this big and right in this location. It basically says kind of somewhere in here it needs to be a neighborhood park, and then kind of let the master plans propose something that is in compliance with that, or general compliance. There's been identified trail corridors along canals here. This blue area are mixed-use zones. It's right around the school, so there was a desire to be able to have some amenities for the kids to be able to go eat, and it'll ultimately be an amenity for the neighbors as well. Sometimes out of these exercises will come recommendations for zone district or zoning code amendments, because sometimes the vision for the properties are such that our existing zone districts couldn't accommodate it. So there might be a recommendation to create a new zone district, and that's fairly common. I know City of Bend has done that in some of their area planning, where they've created zone districts that are only applicable to these areas in town, and they have such unique standards to be able to get that character that they're hoping for.
Scott, I had a quick question. So like in an area plan like this, they don't specify like this parcel has to be park, but how do you make sure like, okay, we need at least 20 acres of park in this whole development? If you have different developers, how do you decide as the city who, you could have a developer, they're like, oh, we'll do 2 acres of parks, and then the next developer's like, wait, now I have to do the 18. So how do you ensure kind of that equitable divvying up of the land if you don't specify exactly the parcel size, or like the park size at this level?
It's a good question. You know, we could either be as specific as the first example I showed you to kind of provide some guidance there, or we can just do it on a case-by-case basis and kind of just, you know, be aware of how many acres we need, how many acres have already been allotted. It's not the ideal way to do it because it's a little bit of reactionary planning. So perhaps I can't remember that if there was a minimum acreage that we needed with the Southwest Area Plan, perhaps there was not. It was just more like we just need neighborhood parks spaced out here versus a minimum acreage, which maybe worked well for that. So maybe it's a good question. I don't completely know the answer. Something that we'll learn along the way with the help from our consultants. But one way is to be just very specific to make sure that all the minimum acreages are represented on that plan. So, and, yeah, good question though. Okay. So just a quick kind of how do the plans formulated? Have the staff is involved. We have a consultant, MIG will still be involved. Their scope to help out with this. We got a grant to get a civil engineer on board to help out, and maybe hopefully a transportation engineer to kind of help advise that area planning process, because the cost to serve is a major component of the developability of an area. So we want to make sure that we're not getting out too far ahead of the utility element, the capacity and how we plan to serve it. So that they'll be involved. There's been a lot of talk about having a citizen advisory committee to help guide that process. In this particular example, there was a citizen advisory committee. There was a lot of property owners that were involved, because you could see that there was a lot of individual properties in the area, and we want to involve property owners in this because they have a stake in it, is a big stake in it. But we want to make sure it's also balanced with citizens as well. What the makeup of that is, we'll work with council. The council wants to see a robust public process through this step in the process. What it exactly consists of, we don't know yet, but there's been strong community support for that, and I think council agrees. We could also stand up a technical advisory committee to help advise us on the process. And then the one in Redmond, I think there was 6 community advisory committee meetings, so it took about 6 to 8 months of work to get it to a point where people were happy with it. And then it went through, it was adopted by City Council after a recommendation by the Planning Commission. So this is actually an amendment to our comprehensive plan. So you as a body will be involved in approving that plan.
Scott, so when we're looking at this down the road, the land pricing is based on just a negotiation between the developer and the landowner. And of course, that'll tell us whether it's realistic to have workforce or affordable housing, depending on what they come up with. So you guys, or the city, will say we want this percent of affordable and this percent of workforce housing, and then the developer and the landowner have to try and figure out whether that's going to work or not.
Yeah, I mean, essentially that's kind of how it will work, is that the city will lay out the expectations at a time, and any developer will surely be aware, hopefully be aware that that's a requirement, and they'll have to kind of work in that component into the overall cost of their development, and and hopefully negotiate a land price accordingly. And we'll see how it goes. We have I think the council has a percentage in mind, and 10 years, 5 years from now, if nothing happens, and we hear that that's an impediment, maybe that's an opportunity to rethink that.
Scott, I have 2 questions. The first one, you said the city of Redmond took 6 to 8 months. Do we have a time frame for what area planning for us will be?
Not really, other than just wanting to do a thorough process, but to be expedient, because we know we won't be entertaining any annexations until we have this done.
Right.
So just the longer it takes, the longer that it'll be before somebody can actually propose an annexation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my second question, during the area planning process, do road designations also happen in terms of arterial and city?
I think kind of general,
The next layer.
general kind of alignments of, we're not going to designate local streets at this time because they're just, it's such a fine detail that we really don't need to get to at this stage, but arterials and collectors, probably just general alignments probably will be a component of this.
Okay. And the area planning? Well, I mean, looking at this, it feels like an area plan is more about relationships and adjacencies of different uses, which I think is helpful to think about when we're thinking about what we want to be next to each other versus not, which comes to the arterials and how people are moving through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just in the interest of time, I think we'll skip to the housing plan, but if there are any more questions, does it kind of make sense? Okay, good. So, project that we worked on in 2022 was the update to the city's housing plan. Let's see. No. If I can find it. Just a second here. There. So we had, previous to 2022, we had a housing plan that was last updated in 2010. And so much had changed in terms of how communities looked at affordable housing that the council decided it was time to update our housing plan. And so we did it about the same time as we did the land use, the efficiency measures analysis. So they kind of went sort of hand in hand, and there is some overlap between the two. The efficiency measures was to try to see how we could use land more efficiently within our community in anticipation of a UGB amendment. The housing plan was specifically kind of related to housing with a focus on how do we get more affordable and workforce housing. We need all kinds of housing, but we really need things that address our workforce and those at lower incomes. And so this plan is primarily geared towards how to incentivize or result in more of that type of housing. So there's a bunch of demographic information that is in the plan that took a look at incomes and things of that nature, that housing units, how many units are out there, what type of housing units are out there. There's some interesting information if you want to look at it yourself in terms of how many units we need in certain income categories. So there was different strategies that we looked at as part of the housing plan, and it goes goes across a variety of different topic areas. The first one that we felt like we could affect some change was looking at our zoning code. So here was a whole bunch of strategies that we could take a look at, that we could make changes to our code that would facilitate more multifamily, preserving our low density, preserving our multifamily zones for multifamily, so we increase the floor minimum density to make sure that single family units weren't being built in our multifamily. We have some other strategies here. We took a look at increasing building heights. That one ultimately didn't pass muster. Community wasn't quite ready for 4 or 5 story buildings yet in Sisters. That was another element of it. Yeah. That was a big element of it. And so we took a look at some of these strategies, and we adopted some and we didn't adopt others. Matt is going to go over in a few minutes, take a few of these and talk about the ones we did adopt and how they've been put into use so far. But we looked at other elements, and this plan is something that we dust off every once in a while, and we try to make sure that it gets utilized. There has been talk at council about creating a housing advisory committee to help the city advise the city council on what other programs or incentives that we can put into place to help out with affordable housing. That's a recommendation that came out of the housing plan. But some of the other things we can do, rezone and redesignate land. We've done that in a few instances. We rezoned the Trinity Place apartments that was previously zoned only supported institutional uses. We rezoned it to multifamily. One of the lots out there, and that's the site that the Trinity Place Apartments project is going up. We took a look at surplus land for affordable housing. Problem is the city doesn't have a whole lot of surplus land. Other communities do. Bend has taken advantage of that. There's been some good examples of affordable housing being built on surplus land. The school is actually looking at potentially using some of their surplus land to build housing hopefully for their teachers. Has been discussed in the community. So there are a few opportunities in the community to do that. Annexation.
That big tract over by Camp Polk that was downtown commercial to allow for housing.
Which parcel?
Behind the retirement center along Camp Polk there. It's a big plot of vacant land that's been vacant for a long time. It used to be zoned.
Yeah, one of the things we did there is to not require mixed use in that area. Only.
Right.
That was an example to try to help facilitate housing. Annexation agreements, we talked about that with the area plan. That's a great tool for the city to use to get affordable housing, to require it with annexations. Expedited permit for affordable housing. We don't have that in our code, but we would certainly make every effort to expedite permitting for affordable housing when they come through. And I think there's some requirements, some state law requirements for that as well. What financial incentives can we put into place as a city? When buildings get built, they are required to pay system development charges, which are impact fees, which can be quite expensive, and so can sometimes be a deterrent for projects getting built or a major cost. The city doesn't exempt SDC charges or reduce them, but we started a deferral program so that developers could put it off till later in the process so that they don't have to kind of finance those SDC charges. And then we also have a grant program that helps affordable housing pay for their SDC fees. Financial resources, we can do general obligation bonds, which are bonds to increase property taxes for affordable housing projects. Some other communities are utilizing that tool. We haven't yet. Tax increment financing in our downtown urban renewal area. We've dedicated funds for affordable workforce housing that resulted in the workforce housing grant that we put out to the community that Habitat took advantage of for their large commons project. Housing trust funds, tax abatements, that basically is a break on property taxes for certain types of development. Some communities do multifamily. If you do multifamily development, you get a break on your property taxes for a certain period of time. Construction excise tax, that's a fee, a small percentage that building permits pay that goes into a fund that the community can use to help leverage affordable housing projects. Bend has one, Redmond has one. That might be something that the community takes a look at. And then community land trusts, there's different types of models and strategies, land acquisition, lease, and partnerships that the community can put together. So that's kind of a quick overview of some of the things that are in the housing plan. Like I said, that's a big council goal. I think we're going to start taking another look at some of these tools that we can put into place to help with affordable housing. So before I turn it over to Matt, are there any questions on any of that? He's going to kind of take you through a few real world examples of those zoning changes. So I'm going to stop my share.
One quick question. This is like the affordable housing as defined, like 80 to 120% of median income
Yeah,
of people who already live in Sisters.
it doesn't go that far, but it's more about income.
Yeah, but of people who live in Sisters already. Because you have to define the median income of who? People who already live here, not necessarily the people who
It's
work here.
challenging to with fair housing laws to only limit it to people.
Oh,
And-
okay.
And there's some challenges there, but there's, as we learned from Northwest Housing Alternatives, there's some tricks of the trade, I guess, that they can employ to try to get Sisters residents to have priority there to apply for some of
Well,
those.
I mean, like the numbers are defined based on people who already live in Sisters, not the many people who work in Sisters who don't live here.
Which numbers? are you-
Like the median income,
Oh,
that it's
yeah.
defined. It's
Yes.
just people who already live here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
All right, Matthew Martin, City of Sisters Planning Division. My effort is to identify kind of, as Scott summarized the strategies, is to drill down and identify, share what those measures and strategies that we've implemented since 2022 and the plan was updated. Some of you've touched on, so we can breeze past those. But just to give you an idea of how we're working to accommodate the additional 1,100 dwelling units that are anticipated in the next 20 years, both within the existing urban growth boundary and also the expansion areas, as we understand that our population is set to double in that same time period. So, as Scott covered already, they have 5 general strategies in the plan, and below each of those are kind of action or objectives to implement those strategies. So, touching on strategy 1, the zoning and code changes. We adopted an ordinance in late 2022, not long after the adoption of the housing plan update, commonly referred to as efficiency measures. Those are measures to use land more efficiently that we have here within the city, instead of more sprawling or lower density developments, and use it to accommodate that density that we want or need. So just capturing in summary here, a lot of the work was done in the multifamily residential district. And I'll note that all of you have participated in some components of these changes with items that have come to the Planning Commission previously. First, we targeted the increasing density within the district. Standard density now is a number of units of 15 to 30 units per acre. There are options to go above and beyond that, upwards of 40 units with a minor conditional use permit. If you do offer affordable housing component to that, you can go up to 50 units per acre. A stark difference to what we had before, which was 7 to 15 units per acre. So our floor was the maximum before. So that's where we were seeing a lot of single-family, larger lot development in our kind of precious, limited multifamily residential zone lands. Also, in both the multifamily and residential districts, we reduced the minimum lot size for all of our residential uses, from single family, duplex, triplex, added quadplexes, fourplexes to the residential district, all the way up to multifamily. So these two standards work in tandem. By reducing the minimum lot size, raising the density, you give that opportunity to establish and build more units. Adopted more comprehensive standards for middle housing. That's kind of your triplex, duplex, cottage developments, but a more standardized approach and both design and layout of those sites, just to have it more clear in how to accommodate those types of developments within built environments or new areas. And then added more comprehensive refinement of our affordable housing standards. In particular, it's always been there, but allowing for density bonuses or reduced lot size for providing affordable housing as part of your development. So those are those incentives to, one of those carrots to accommodate developers or incentivize the inclusion of affordable housing as part of their projects. Noting that one of the new requirements is annual reporting to show that you're still maintaining the number of units provided to those income qualifying households. Do want to note kind of affordable housing generally, and I say generally because the standards apply in different settings and different circumstance. But in general, it means that you're not rent burdened more than 30% of your household income for households earning 30 to 150% of that AMI. And one example is that with multifamily or cluster developments, those incentives increase based on the target group or earning group within that AMI. So the lower the income, the higher the density bonus that you receive, or the higher relief from the minimum lot sizes. Second strategy, or continuing the strategies for zoning and code changes, it was in the downtown commercial district, as the chair was referencing, was to allow residential only development within the downtown commercial district. Before, it needed to be a mixed use environment with residential and commercial on a lot. With these inclusions, it allows for the variety and virtually all of our residential types in select areas of downtown. So generally the Adams Avenue corridor, and then out west behind Les Schwab, more farther to the north, and then the larger acreage over near the lodge assisted living or a senior living facility. So again, to give some additional, we saw the surplus lands and opportunities to provide those units and that additional density within kind of areas that are on the fringes of our downtown commercial district, but in those interfaces with already existing residential development. One of the realities that that has come to fruition or nearly there are the Larch Commons East and West projects that came before the Planning Commission not too long ago. These are along Adams Avenue and resulted in a total of 27 total units, and of those 21 will be affordable housing units. This is, if you've been over that area, you've seen the infrastructure been installed. So we're moving towards the platting of the subdivision. Building permits have been submitted but not yet issued for the development. But that's a Habitat for Humanity project that we hope to see some action, going vertical with the units sometime soon. Next, as Scott noted, was rezoning lands to accommodate additional residential development. This is one where we targeted acreage to provide land for the Trinity Place affordable housing project. So this is over as part of Heavenly Acres, where rezoned a portion of that to multifamily residential, which is ultimately resulted in additional 40 affordable housing units that are currently under construction. So this is one of those mechanisms to convert lands to accommodate additional residential development. And then as we touched on zoning or standards to apply to make incentivize or make it more viable for additional residential development. Then those is cost burdens that Scott was touching on. And we adopted and implemented a SDC deferral program early last year. And it requires deed restrictions, an assigned agreement to pay the SDCs in a timely fashion, either in a 2-year time period or certificate of occupancy for the development. And again, the development needs to provide those units that qualify as affordable housing. We've had Trinity Place has taken advantage of this program. Their benefit or deferral was in excess of $170,000. So that those dollars are real and can be that burden from getting started. So it provides that relief to get started, to defer or identify where those revenue sources are to pay later on. I know that Habitat has explored similar agreements moving forward. So just this is just identifying the various tools that we have put into action and practice through our programs that are identified in the housing plan, and continue to explore those as we move forward and see what we can put into practice to get the units that we need coming up in the short term and that long term. So any questions after that kind of swift summary of what actions we've taken? Ideas, questions, thoughts?
Are there any of these initiatives that haven't been pursued that are kind of in the process to be looked at and implemented in the next year or two?
We haven't targeted any to say we're going to hit on this strategy and take it forward. I think we're spending the bulk of our energy on completing the urban growth boundary amendment and the area planning to identify, you know, if and how those projects can move forward, and then kind of then in concert look forward to what other options that we do have.
I think that rather than just deferring, if the city could afford it, maybe there would be a discount scale considered for SDCs based on the percentage of affordable or workforce housing.
So like a reduced rate,
Yeah,
depending.
reduced rate.
There's been some discussion about that. The counter, I guess you'll hear, is that all the improvements to accommodate growth, those dollars still are needed, to serve those units, regardless of if they're affordable or not. The strategy that the city has used to mitigate that is the Affordable Housing Grant Fund that is funded by a percentage of our transit room tax. That was the idea, is that we weren't going to reduce SDCs or not charge SDCs for certain types of uses, but give this program out there for people to take advantage that could help pay those SDCs. Because you'll hear the Public Works wants to still be whole in terms of the money that they need to fund all these improvements that all this growth is creating. So if we give discounts, then that money's got to come from somewhere else. And then it might have to come from existing residents, and that's what these fees are designed to avoid, is for growth to pay its own way, not to have existing residents subsidize development. So
The other thing you guys could do is simplify some of the land use process, like the burden of proof, being 30 pages long, and that could easily be, I know that there's a lot of effort that would be involved in that, but
agreed. There's a lot of provisions to review. Maybe there's an opportunity with maybe the code audit or whatever, if there are things that can be consolidated or no longer applicable. We could reduce the burden of proof.
I think more clear and objective standards so that land use review is not required, so that you go straight to building permit, or I know this is kind of an offshoot, but pre-approved plans for, other communities have pre-approved ADU or accessory dwelling unit plans. So standardizing some processes to help streamline and more timely and clearer and simpler, as to use a word. I think that other communities you talk about supplementing SDCs have looked at a affordable housing fee that comes with each building permit, so that everyone that's developing it's not an SDC, but it's a separate fee that goes into an affordable housing pot of money. Not saying that that's a strategy that the city's pursuing, but
like the construction excise tax,
similar to that. But there's a menu of options out there to consider.
one of the biggest problems is that we don't have our own department, for inspectors and everything. So you have to go through the planning here in Sisters first and do this burden of proof. It's like this 30-page long document with a lot of repetition. And then you go to the county, and so that it just makes everything take a lot longer. So some of the things you were mentioning, Matt, could really help.
Yeah, and that code audit, or in response to your question about things we could do, I think the code audit presents a lot of opportunities to take a look at some of these, efficiency measures or incentives. Certainly one of the goals is to eliminate unnecessary obstacles to housing. We still have to have standards, but are there standards there that don't make sense anymore, or too stringent? It's an opportunity for the commission and the council to reevaluate some of those things.
The idea of sort of having ready-made, we talked about having standardized ADUs, to what level can you scale that up to have here's a template that worked, just plug and play, in law, there's no such thing as just copying other people's work and having that be bad. You absolutely crib from everybody else's work just to make things move. And that seems like that would probably help developers and everybody else.
Well, it's 5 o'clock. I think that ends our presentation, so thanks for hearing us out, and just looking forward to the next meeting. When we're busy, we usually have 2 meetings per month schedule, but right now there's just not a need for that, so I would propose canceling the March 5th meeting and going to the March 19th as the next workshop, and we can do some more continuing education there. Looks like in April, we will be bringing forward some code amendments. Some housekeeping code amendments. So we have a workshop tentatively scheduled for April 2nd for that, followed by a public hearing on April 16th. Housekeeping amendments. Nothing super meaty, but something different. And this would be good kind of preparation for larger public hearings that we will be holding with the urban growth boundary amendment and code audits in the future. So felt this would be a good warm-up for that. I mean, some of you have done those before, but a refresher, I guess. It's been some time, hasn't it? So, yeah.
Just one comment based on the little talk that Mark gave up there. The Planning Commission it's not their purview at all to review pricing for contracts. That would be, if anything, would be the budget committee, I would
think. Or the Public Works Department, when they put things out to bid, they're getting multiple bids, and they're doing their research to see what are reasonable costs for these kinds of things, so that when the bids come in, they know that they're in the ballpark for reasonable costs. So I think he's come to council, so he's addressed council as well, and so we're aware of some of those concerns. And there are some good responses to some of those question marks about things that seem like they're very costly. We get grants for consultants a lot of the time to help defray some of those costs. And like I said, some of those big public works projects go through a competitive bid process. So we try to I think they're really trying hard to get a reasonable price for the community on some of these projects. So. Yeah, that's a good point. We have a Public Works Advisory Commission, or Public Works Advisory Board, that our Public Works Department runs some of these big projects through, just like you guys, to help advise them. So there's multiple layers. So, but good point, Chair, that it's really not a Planning Commission purview. I think you guys probably understood that, yeah.
Okay, I guess meeting is adjourned then.
Thanks.
Anything else?
All right, see you guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.